So Nvidia has delayed the RTX 3070 for 2 weeks to the end of October. This has a massive amount of significance, not only with the recent RTX 3080 launch, but also AMD is releasing their GPUs, or at least announcing them, on October 28th. This is certainly pretty big news, so let's talk about it and analyze possibly why it happened. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing, hit that notification bell. We do a lot of analysis of the PC hardware marketplace. It's not just about budget and buying it. There are a lot of complicated things when you're building your computer, knowing when things are coming out, availability. We also do really cool water-cooled builds and PC hardware reviews. So consider subscribing, smash that like button, and let's get right into the video. Alright, so there's been some breaking news lately. As you guys have heard, the RTX 3070 has been delayed until October 29th, which is 2 weeks after that Nvidia originally planned to release it on the 15th. Now, this is significant for a number of reasons. The RTX 3080 launch, as you know, has been peppered with problems with availability, out of stock, notify me, straight to out of stock, without add to cart, with bots and scalpers. You guys know the whole story. If you've been watching the channel and just watching the tech space in general, I think you guys have heard some of this. And now with the RTX 3070, I made a video recently saying that the launch was going to be really tricky and not to really expect big things, just because of the overwhelming demand that the RTX 3070 was going to have. If the 3080, which is a $700 GPU, and the 3090, which is a $1,500 GPU, who thought that it would be such crazy demand? They can't make them fast enough. If those two are in such high demand, think about it. A $499 RTX 3070, which beats the 2080 Ti. And remember, 2 months ago, the 2080 Ti was still a god tier GPU. So it's not like it's absolutely invalid and obsolete technology. 2080 Ti for most people would be absolutely phenomenal. 1080p, 1440p, even 4K. Of course, not at 8K like the 3090, but who's gaming at 8K anyway, aside from like a demo video online as tech tips? And as a side note to this, in 8K, even though not many people use it, I do think it's very interesting. I love pushing technology, so eventually, of course, people are going to be playing in 4K and 8K. Soon, I may actually have a chance to play on a really sick 8K TV, very high-end 8K TV, with possibly 1 or 2 RTX 3090s. Of course, this isn't a setup that I actually own, but I may have the chance to actually physically play on one, maybe for a few hours. So I'm working on those details now. I did a poll recently. You guys were actually really excited to see that. And it's pretty cool to see what these GPUs can do at their maximum 8K performance with their massive amounts of VRAM, 24 gigabytes, and the 3090. So that's definitely something that I'm keeping my eye on. But for most of us in our own home gaming environment, 8K is just sort of the poster on the wall Lamborghini dream. So let's talk about the 3070. Why did Nvidia delay the 3070 launch? Well, there are going to be a number of reasons. First, they kind of told us themselves why they delayed it. They recognized that many people were frustrated with the 3080 and 3090 launch, primarily the 3080, just because the 3090 was going to be in limited supply anyway, and it's such a niche GPU that we really didn't expect it to be sold in massive amounts of quantities. But the 3070 is going to be sort of the killer mainstream GPU for gamers everywhere, considering the price at $499, which it's not cheap by any means. And if you look at GPUs that were high-end even a few years ago, 400 to 600 was really starting to get at the top of the heap. Even the 1080 Ti was $699. So $499, by no means is it budget or is it cheap, but for the performance that you're getting for your dollar, at least in today's day and age, after all the mining craze really bumped up these GPU prices, it represents an absolutely phenomenal and significant value for your money, because the performance is like the next tier high-level performance for a very affordable price. Not to mention, it incorporates all of the new Nvidia technologies like ray tracing, DLSS, everything that's going to make your gaming experience. Let's face it, we get these because we want to have a smooth smooth gaming experience. You don't want games crashing or stuttering, and you want it visually to look really, really good. So I think Nvidia finally realizes the massive amount of demand that's out there. With the launch of the 3080, I could see how they possibly underestimated demand just because, this year's been crazy all around, not only with technology. So I'm sure there are manufacturing issues to consider. There's a lot of actually very difficult stuff that goes on behind the scenes when you're manufacturing, you're planning. It's a whole big operation. So you can't just say on the whim Nvidia decided to do this or that. They are a massive company, but they're also very smart. And I do think that they're passionate about what they're doing, and they're trying to put their best foot forward with the consumer. And it just so happened that the RTX 3080, I think, was just really a miscalculation that I think nobody saw coming, not even the partner websites. Of course, they want to sell GPUs, they want to make money, they don't want websites crashing, they don't want issues like this to take place. And of course, least of all, they don't want bad customer experiences. And this holds true not only for Nvidia, which basically only sells GPUs on their site, and it might be something that people may buy only maybe once or twice every few years, but other partner websites like Newegg, Amazon, Best Buy, even your local Micro Center, they depend on making sure that the customer is happy, not only for that initial GPU purchase. There's a high likelihood that you're also going to be buying different PC hardware from them, maybe a motherboard or a CPU, as well as throughout time you may order a keyboard or a mouse. So if you have a bad customer experience with a launch, you may not trust that retailer as much. So trust me, I think it's in their best interest, and they know this, to make sure that launches are smooth and people aren't frustrated. I think people definitely understand having limited supply, especially of a GPU like this. What people actually want is just to at least have a fair chance at getting a GPU, not thinking that like a bot bought like 30 of them and it's going to be sold with a scalper or something like that, ripping people off. They want to know that, okay, at least they had a minute or two to be able to order one of these GPUs, or if they didn't, maybe the demand was just too high, but it was actually other gamers buying them. That's really all people want, and I think that's one of the reasons that Nvidia delayed this launch until October 29th. That way they have almost an entire month now to make sure that demand is at least met to a certain extent. I'm sure they can do many things. First, let's make sure that all these websites have the proper security preventive measures to avoid things like bots and unfair practices from happening. And I think they've let people know that they're working on it. Not only Nvidia, but EVGA let people know that, Newegg. These various websites are definitely having to put in different countermeasures and having a whole month ahead of us instead of being just a 2-week away launch as it initially was. I think it gives them more time to beef up their infrastructure a little bit. That way, if they want to implement different security measures on their website, I'm sure this costs a lot of money, a lot of time. It's not just something you can throw on there. They also have to make sure that things run smoothly and interact well with other things on their website. So it is a little bit more of a complicated process. But considering the amount of demand, I think they definitely have an incentive to try and fix that issue. This is of primary importance just because if you thought the RTX 3080 launch made people frustrated, imagine the 3070. Think of how many people are waiting from the 10 series and even 20 series to upgrade to the 3070. It's going to be an entire order of magnitude higher just because it comes in at a considerably cheaper price than not only the 2080 Ti, but it's also cheaper than the 3080. And for most people, the 3070 really is more than enough, more than you need. If you're not pushing like 4K and really intense games, I think from anything below 4K, the 3070 actually is going to do fantastically well, even with its VRAM. You'd want more VRAM if you're going to be playing 4K maxed out like with the 3080. There's definitely been some discussion of the 20 gigabyte VRAM possible model coming out. And of course, it's one of the advantages the 3090 has over the 3080. It's 24 gigabytes of VRAM. And then, of course, another big point is going to be AMD announcing their GPUs on October 28th. Nvidia is going to be on October 29th, which is really just one day after. You don't want a bad October 15th launch to make people give up on Nvidia and want to buy AMD cards on the 28th whenever they're released. So I think there's a good reason why the launch is after. At least if there is a fiasco, it's going to be after AMD announces their GPU. At least that might give Nvidia a little bit more room as we go into November in order to battle AMD, especially especially the 3070, which is going to be a level of GPU that AMD certainly will compete with. But the issue with the competition from AMD's new GPUs and Nvidia's releasing GPUs now like the 3070 is really a subject matter for an entire video, which we're going to tackle in upcoming videos as well. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed sort of this analysis of what's going on in the market right now. Let me know down in the comments below if you were considering to get a 3070, what happens to your build now. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell. We do a lot of analysis of these type of releases as well as PC hardware reviews and really awesome builds. And I'll see you guys on the next video.